Hello, my name's Gary Ford, Managing Director of Tiger Hobbies Limited, UK hobby importers and distributors, and welcome to the Pacific War Part 2, Episode 8, Okinawa, the Aftermath. Before we look at the cost of this tough battle and its consequences, we shall briefly look at the British Pacific Fleet's battle for Okinawa. As stated earlier, a large part of the massive British Pacific Fleet were committed to the battle as Task Force 57 and given the role of protecting the southern flank of the operation around the, I think it's called the Sakishima Islands, that held a number of Japanese airfields used for kamikaze attacks. This was also a tough battle for the BPF, having to deal with numerous kamikaze attacks, and it was here that the Submarine Seafire showed its strengths in dogfighting, shooting down many of the kamikaze aircraft. I'm holding here actually a Royal Australian Air Force Spitfire Mark 8, which is the later version of one of the Spitfires, and it's kind of doing a bit of action. It's standing in for a Royal Navy Seafire. The markings and colours are very, very similar. This would be like, I think, a Seafire Mark 3. But by the time the British Pacific Fleet fought at Okinawa, they're using, I do believe, Spitfires 16s and 17s, which were basically Spitfires powered by the single-stage, four-bladed propped Griffon engine. Many, though, got through, and behind me is a picture of HMS Formidable that hit and on fire from a kamikaze aircraft. The US Navy liaison officers were so amazed how resilient the British carriers were with their armoured decks compared to US carriers, and Formidable was in action in less than 55 minutes. Other fleet aircraft hammered the Japanese aircraft and destroyed many aircraft on the ground and destroying their airfields infrastructure, but at cost. The BPF lost about 120 killed, a high number wounded, and loss of many aircraft, many in accidents. 4 of the large fleet carriers were damaged by kamikaze hits. The British Pacific Fleet would continue to fight until the last days of the war, with Fleet Airline pilot Canadian Lieutenant Hamilton Gray winning the VC posthumously on the 9th of August 1945, destroying an IGN destroyer with his F4U Corsair seen down below. The last VC, in fact, of the war, HMS King George V, seen next to me, would shell the Japanese islands at the end of July, becoming the very last battleship to fire its guns in anger. The battle for Okinawa was the most costly battle in the Pacific and cost the Allies some 85,000 casualties, of which 52,000 were direct battle casualties, and there will be at least 33,000 soldiers treated for battle fatigue or combat stress, possibly the highest in any World War II battle for the Western Allies. The Japanese military lost close to 100,000 dead, including many conscripted Okinawans, including child soldiers seen behind me, plus another 100,000 pure civilians, totaling some 250,000 in total. Material losses to the Allies was massive, with almost 800 aircraft lost, 400 tanks, 35 ships of all types, plus the damage by kamikazes and other Japanese fire of almost 400 ships. This was a terrible foretaste of things to come if and when they invaded the Japanese home islands under Operation Downfall, split into 2 operations, Operation Olympic and Operation Cornet, with an attacking force of some at least 3 million assault troops. Japan had upwards of 6 million men still under arms in and around Japan, plus conscripted civilians. Plus, they still had 12,000 aircraft. This would be an horrendous task. It was expected during war plans that casualty estimations would be between minimum 500,000 to 1 million, and some planners expected it to be several million Allied casualties. The Japanese, well, they'd expect to lose some 10 million if the gloves came up, especially with the potential use of chemicals and biological weapons. As stated in one of my early videos about the Pacific, the USA would not sign up to the treaty to limit chemical weapons until 1975. Within 3 weeks of the ending of the Battle of Okinawa, the USA would explode the first atomic bomb, and the Soviet Union would, though neutral with Japan at the time, were making plans to take Japanese territories in Manchuria and possible invasion of northern Japan. In the next series, we shall look at the history of strategic bombing that would play a crucial but terrible part in the defeat of Japan and Germany. I will end this episode by showing films showing US soldiers and Marines looking after Okinawan civilians, including children, as the brutality of this battle led to moments of humanity.
An entire population, equivalent to that of the state of Vermont, had to be rescued from the impact and shock of a battle that was never more than a few thousand yards away. At first, there was no way of knowing how many of these people were yet uncollected. It was known, however, that over 100,000 of the younger and healthier men had been evacuated to Japan just prior to our invasion. It was also known that most of the younger Okinawan women had been forced to accompany the Japanese garrison when it withdrew to the hills. This girl refused to go with them. They cut off her foot and left her alone to starve. The rest of the population had been ordered into the hills with 30 days' rations and commanded to kill themselves rather than submit to capture by the Americans. But they preferred to live. So much so that in 25 days, our civil affairs sections had accumulated 150,000. The vanguard of what would eventually be the largest number of enemy civilians yet captured in the Pacific. Civil affairs encouraged the people to bring as much extra food and clothing as they could salvage. For while we were prepared to meet all cases of distress, their capture did not automatically make them American citizens as some believed. And we did not make the landing for the purpose of philanthropy.